All right, welcome back to the channel. My name is Coach Jordan Hardgrave. Today we're going to be talking about 7 things that don't permanently get rid of depersonalization realization. And by the way, if you notice that my eyes are a little bit red and glassy, it's because there's a sickness going through my city where it kind of parches your throat, makes your eyes really red and goopy, fatigue. I'm on the tail end of it, but if you notice that, that's why. But sometimes knowing what not to do is just as important as knowing what to do. And if you want to know what to do, I've got a couple resources for you. Watch my very last video that I just posted. I think it's called like trauma, DPDR in the body or something like that. A lot of people were really helped by that based on looking at the response to it, the comments. Things like that. I talk about the 4 primary things that you need to do to communicate safety to your nervous system, which are self-regulation, directly releasing the tension, adrenaline, and emotion from the body, co-regulation, working with somebody that can build hope in you, build a secure attachment relationship, guide you through the ups and downs of learning how to self-regulate. It's been said that co-regulation precedes self-regulation. Humans heal humans, okay? The next thing is exposure, facing your sensory triggers. We also couple that with relaxation. And then also the last part of it, believe it or not, is getting the right information, getting the right neuroscience as to why your symptoms are happening, how your brain, body, nervous system work in survival states is going to detach fear from the symptoms, resistance of the symptoms, shame from the symptoms, and obsession with symptoms. But go watch that video for that. And there's the 5 Shifts Masterclass. There should be lots of links around my channel where you can watch that, where I go more in depth with kind of what to do and the 5 shifts you need to make. But this video is about what you don't need to do. And the reason why we want to highlight these 7 things is because these things are deceptive. If you're doing these things, you may be seeing short-term results that you think is recovery. Or you feel like on the other side of doing these things is going to be permanent recovery. And notice I said 7 things that don't permanently get rid of depersonalization realization. Like if you want symptom management, there's tons of stuff out there that'll get you symptom management, depending on how severe the buildup is of stress and fatigue in your body. Some of the stuff doesn't even work for symptom management. But if you really, really want to get to the root, these things are not going to work. If you want permanent recovery, these things are not going to work. So let's go to the first thing, your mind. So this is a huge mistake that I see people make all the time, and it usually will add several months, if not a number of years, onto their recovery. You have a history of using your mind to overcome challenges. I've got a client right now, he's pretty high up in the finance world, and I've worked with several people in the finance world, and very, very good at numbers and thinking critically and logically, but not just people in the finance world. But I mentioned him because that was one of the things that was really holding him back, is trying to outthink these symptoms and trying to over intellectualize them. And we had to spend a lot of time really going into the neuroscience of what's happening in the body, because he's used to just using his mind to overcome anything. And I told him, like, this is the one puzzle that you're not going to be able to solve with your mind. But I mean, I've had multiple PhDs in neuroscience come through my program. Right now, we've got a couple, emergency room physicians in the emergency room physicians in the program. They're literally doctors. And very, very smart, obviously. And I work with people regularly who are extremely, extremely intelligent, or they just have a very powerful mind that they've used to overcome all kinds of challenges in their life. And because that's the history, their mind tells them that this challenge is going to be no different. Surely I can outthink this, outlogic this, out-intellectualize this. But that's why understanding what's happening in the body is really, really, really important. Okay? Once you understand the neuroscience of anxiety and trauma and how it affects the body, you realize we're going to have to change the state of the body. There's a lot of buildup in the body. And especially if you have a strong mind, you've probably been in your head trying to fix this so much with your mind that you're not even aware of how much buildup of tension, adrenaline, emotion is in the body. That might be one reason why you're in this state, is because you have a tendency to go into your head and try to fix things with your mind. All the while your body is building up because you're experiencing sensory data that is similar to painful past experiences. This is known as a sensory trigger. You've got lots of sensory triggers, and it's causing your body to go into fight, flight, or the freeze response. And every time that these neural connections of threat association fire, they get stronger and more efficient at putting your body into fight, flight, freeze. And while you're up here trying to outthink these symptoms, your body is becoming more and more of a war zone. And so with that being said, I'll always say trying to get rid of anxiety, panic, depersonalization, realization with your mind is like trying to fight a fire with a water hose that doesn't have any water in it. And the reason why that your mind isn't effective is because there's so much buildup in the body that it's compromising your ability to harness the full power of your prefrontal cortex, which is logical, critical, creative, and contextual thinking. It's also attentional awareness as well. Because whenever you're in fight, flight, freeze response, it's very procedural. It's not about thinking. Thinking is too slow. That'll get you eaten by the lions. And so it's really, I'm going to fight the lion. I'm going to flee from the lion. And if I can't fight or flee, I'm going to freeze. And so there's diminished functionality in your prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain. And so you really don't even have a whole lot of cognitive ability right now to do much of anything. There's too much buildup in the body. And I love, there's this quote by Edmund Jacobson, who created progressive muscle relaxation. And he says, you can't have an anxious mind and a relaxed body. And one of the principles that I want to present to you that I tell my clients all the time, and it's going to take a while for this to sink in. At first, it won't make any sense. The more that you calm the body, which takes a lot, by the way, those 4 things that we talked about at the beginning, self-regulation, co-regulation, exposure, and getting the right neuroscience, all of those things are about communicating safety to the body, which creates relaxation. And the more that you increase relaxation in the body, the more that you decrease stress in the mind and just stress in general. But most people don't think of that. They don't think to go to the body whenever they're experiencing, let's say, anxious thoughts, for example, or they can't concentrate, or there's all these issues with their mind. They assume, okay, well, this has to be a mind issue then. But what I will tell you is that the state of your mind is determined by the state of your body. And so if you want to deal with these anxious thoughts, these irrational fears, all of this cognitive interruption, you need to go through the body. We need to increase relaxation in the body. We have to get in tune with the body. This is called interoception, the experience of the embodied self. And we have to release the buildup. But you're never going to get there if you're yielding to this belief that your mind is powerful enough to beat this. I get why you're doing it, because you've been able to overcome everything else with your mind in life. So surely this will be no different. But I'm telling you, this is the one puzzle that you can't solve with your mind. The next thing is quick fixes. I definitely want to empathize. Okay, I don't say quick fixes in a way to bring shame or make you feel negative in any way for that. I say it in terms of you're pursuing things that don't have the capacity to really deal with the root issues here, especially things happening in the body. But you're looking for the quick fix because you just want to feel better. I remember I would be on Google and I would be searching, depersonalization, realization cure, anxiety cure, watching video after video. Like I just wanted something that was going to make it all go away. But as long as you are looking for that quick fix, you're not going to be addressing the layers of the onion, those 4 that we talked about, and then other factors in your life that we need to address to reduce your stress and to increase relaxation and rest in the body. And you're going to have to accept that there is no quick fix for this, especially if you're going through depersonalization realization. Those are there due to traumatic stress. And trauma is not an event. It's a state of overwhelming stress. And for a lot of people that I work with, it's a complex trauma situation. There's been repeated stress and adversity over time, and it's all built up, almost like, filling up a cup of water, basically. Now, there is something called a major trauma. It's like a lightning strike. It's a sudden state of overwhelming stress. That definitely does happen. But if you're dealing with ongoing depersonalization realization for several months or years, the chances that you don't have a history of significant stress and adversity are pretty low. It's possible, but and because of how many dissociative and numbing behaviors that people participate in, a lot of them are not even aware of how much buildup that they've been carrying. They've been very disconnected from their body. So with that being said, DPDR are trauma coping mechanisms. They're there to dissociate you, which comes from a Latin root word that means to sever or separate. They are there to basically act as like a circuit breaker, right? So let's say that in your house, you've got a power surge and it is about to overwhelm the electrical system. Well, the circuit breaker kicks in to disconnect your appliances from the electrical circuit, so that way it doesn't burn them out. And likewise, whenever you reach that state of overwhelming stress in your body and nervous system, your brain has a procedure for that. And it's basically like, hey, the ship's going down, right? Think of it like the Titanic, and you've got the lifeboats are trying to get away from the ship so they don't go down with the ship. That's what your brain is doing whenever it's dissociating you or separating you from your body or from the material world, as well as, the memory fragments, time starts to feel distorted. This is known as the shutdown response. It's also called the freeze response. It's called a trauma response. It's called the immobilization response. There's a bunch of labels for it, but its purpose is to prepare you to be eaten by a lion. Like, you are so stressed out right now in your body and nervous system that your brain literally thinks that you're about to be eaten by a lion. And so that's one reason why you try to explain these symptoms to people and they just don't get it, is because these symptoms are literally death symptoms. And I don't say that to scare you, because you're not dying. I assume you're not if you're watching this video. But your brain thinks that you're dying. And so you literally feel as terrible as death. These symptoms have to be so dissociative in nature that they are powerful enough to separate you from the pain of being eaten by a lion. That's pretty severe. But yet, on the surface, people look at you and they're like, well, you look fine to me. And we went to the doctor. They did an MRI. They did a CT scan. They did a blood test. They did a urine test. Like, maybe even get a neurological examination. And you're just like, your friends and family are like, are you sure? Maybe you're just overreacting. And they don't understand that you can literally be 100% safe and not die, but yet your nervous system is reacting as if you're dying. And it feels as thick and dark and terrible as death itself, okay? And if you're going through that, I'm very sorry to hear that, and I've been in your shoes before. Nobody truly understood what I was going through. And it makes you feel isolated, it makes you feel alone, but you are not alone in this, okay? I've been through the symptoms, I've beat them. I spent the last 7 years helping other people beat them as well, and you're going to get through this. So the next thing is time, okay? Time in and of itself is not going to fix this, okay? It's not permanently going to deal with the roots. Now, sometimes, people start to experience DPDR or other symptoms of traumatic stress, and at first they're obsessing over them, and that's what's causing their nervous system to not be able to calm down. And so just by kind of moving on, not thinking about it, temporarily, they'll drop below, using the cup example, they'll drop below the point of overwhelm, and DPDR and other traumatic stress symptoms shut off. And so they tell people, oh, you just got to give it time and it'll go away. But maybe for the state of your body and nervous system at that particular moment in time, that was enough for you to downregulate your nervous system. But if you never dealt with the tension, adrenaline, emotion, and fatigue in the body, eventually just not thinking about it is not going to be enough, because now we're dealing with more buildup. I have people all the time, they're like, yeah, back in the day, I just hit the gym. I just wake up early, and eat a little bit healthier, take a few days off work, and I'd be fine. But now that's not working. And what I tell them is it's because your nervous system and body are not the same now as they were a couple years ago, or even a few months ago, technically, even a few days ago. Because again, every time that these sensory triggers are activating in your body because of sensory data around you, these sensory triggers are getting stronger and your body's getting more and more efficient at going into fight, flight, freeze response. And so it's not time that heals all wounds. I've heard that said before, and I really, really don't like that. Because if time is going by and you're not addressing the roots of what is causing your nervous system to be overwhelmed, you're not going to get anywhere. So it's not time that's doing anything. It's time plus doing things that communicate safety to the nervous system, which we talked about what those 4 things were, that are going to get you where you want to go. Acceptance. Acceptance. I have a love-hate relationship with acceptance. So on my bookshelf, I've got a couple acceptance books. At Last to Life, forget the name of who that guy is. Clara Weeks, like Health and Healing for Your Nerves, and I've read the DARE method and all that stuff. And I want to be very clear about this. I love acceptance. I actually am not against it at all. Okay. And in fact, the people who are now behind the DARE method, it used to be called Panic Away. And there was a point where I reached out to them and I got their ebook for panic attacks. And I was having 20 panic attacks a day, and inviting in my symptoms, at least for a little while, allowed me to stop my panic attacks. And that's one reason why when I'm working with clients, I do teach them invitation of symptoms. Okay, because whatever we resist persists. Whatever we resist, our brain thinks is a lion trying to eat us. And usually panic attacks are fueled by you're afraid that if you don't resist, there's going to be some terrible outcome. For me, it was like dying of a heart attack or losing my mind or going crazy. And so you resist and your nervous system backs you up and trusts you, but then it keeps your nervous system in a state of panic. So it's like fear builds off of fear, builds off of fear. And so I remember just how amazing that was at the time. Changed my life. But there's a problem with acceptance though. So because I never did the core 4, the things that we talked about at the beginning, and I never dealt with the buildup in my body and made appropriate lifestyle adjustments, years later, my depersonalization realization hit me again. And there was no acceptance technique that worked anymore. I'll never forget that moment. I was like, okay, oh my God, it's back. I thought it was gone. Oh my gosh, okay, I'll just do acceptance. And I started to just invite everything in, and it didn't work. That was the most terrifying moment of my entire life because I preached the acceptance gospel. So I get it. I understand why so many people, teach that and present it as being so powerful, because if there's a lot of resistance-induced anxiety, you better believe acceptance is going to be very powerful. But at that point, because my nervous system had escalated so much, it wasn't about resistance anymore. My body was a war zone. And even if I invited in all my symptoms and accepted them, it didn't deal with the tension, adrenaline, emotion, and overwhelming fatigue in the body. And my lifestyle had a lot of problems. I was connected to multiple people who were narcissistic abusers. My job was way too overly fatiguing. I wasn't getting good sleep. I wasn't hydrating. I didn't have any boundaries in life. I was a people pleaser. And I wasn't listening to my body at all. Acceptance wasn't enough. And so whenever I tell people that, they're just so desperate to get help. And I get that. I understand that. And I would rather you feel better for a little while than not at all, technically speaking. But why don't we go through the process of really dealing with the roots of why these symptoms are there so we never have to deal with them again? So I always tell my clients, it's not either acceptance or the core 4 that I'm talking about. It's both, right? Yeah, let's invite in symptoms. Let's have an attitude of invitation. That's awesome. But let's deal with what's happening in the body too. That's going to keep us uh, getting to the root and make sure that the symptoms never come back. Remember, this is 7 things that don't permanently get rid of symptoms. Some of these things may work temporarily, but that's not what we're going for. Distraction. Oh, distraction. This one is not a love-hate relationship. It's just a hate relationship. There is a very, very popular program out there. I'm not going to say the name out of the utmost respect that I have for the person who created it. I just think that this person is so kind and just such a good person that, like, I'm not going to say anything about the person. But as far as the approach to deal with depersonalization realization, one of the things, there's a lot of other things that this person teaches people to do too, but distract your mind 24/7 is really kind of one of the hallmarks of this approach. And people do that, and what it really is something called somatic dissociation. So somatic means body, dissociation means to separate. And so if you distract your mind 24/7 and you lose something called interoception, which is the experience of the embodied self, you might see depersonalization realization go away. Remember, DPDR, like a circuit breaker, they're there to separate you from overwhelming stress and fatigue in the body. And so if you're numb to what's happening in your body because you're just living in your head all day, DPDR may temporarily go away. And this person's also really good at encouragement too. And I think that's part of why people are helped as well. But I kid you not, I've been doing this for 7 years now, and I have thousands of applications from people who did this approach with this particular person, and they saw results for a little bit, or they never saw results at all if there was a lot of buildup. And it ultimately wasn't effective. They thought it was effective because they were somatically dissociated, but ultimately it never dealt with the root of their symptoms. In fact, we've had like 5 or 6 people sign up to work with us in the last couple of weeks, actually, that we've been talking about this. They're like, yeah, I've been doing, this name, and I'm not going to say the name just because, again, I literally think this person is so kind and awesome, and like, it doesn't matter if I disagree with the methodology. I can still celebrate that this person has encouraged a lot of people and things like that. And this approach is not all bad at all, for sure. But the distraction thing, it's just not going to deal with the root of what's happening in the body. Okay? And it's also exhausting, right? That's a thing that my clients tell me all the time. They're like, man, just the exhaustion of having to try to distract my mind 24/7 is very, very, very fatiguing. And I'll tell you this, I tried distraction. The second go around, whenever my symptoms came back, I remember I was playing Temple Run all night, and I was trying to play video games, and I was like trying to do that approach. And I'll tell you what, at least for me, it never did anything. And it was exhausting trying to do that. And that's honestly what caused me to pursue other approaches, because I was like, surely there has to be something beyond this. So anyway, distraction is deceptive because it's almost like anesthesia, right? Like, let's say, God forbid, you got into a car accident and your body is just full of, pain, tension, wounds and all this stuff. And they put you under anesthesia. Well, you don't feel that pain, but the pain is technically still there, right? And so with distraction, it's almost like, let's say that there's like a hoarder's house. You've probably seen that show on TLC called Hoarders. And instead of cleaning out the house, we instead walk out the door and we go across the street. And that serves the advantage of we don't have to experience the pain of living in a hoarder's house, but then we also don't get to be present in the house, which represents present in your body. See, the thing about the distraction is you're never going to be in the present moment with that and enjoy your life, because to be present means to be safely embodied. And you cannot be safely embodied unless, using the hoarder's house example, you go and clean up the house. And so whenever I'm working with somebody, I always say, like, is it going to be a lot more work? Yes. Are we going to have to address multiple layers? Yes. Is it going to take more time? Yes. But we're actually dealing with the buildup in the body that's going to allow you to not just permanently recover, but know why you're keeping your results forever. You're not ever going to have to worry about the symptoms coming back again. And that is a beautiful thing. Okay, I think we're almost done. Got a couple more. Random positive activities. This right here is really, really, really hard for people to accept. And the reason why is because they have a history of, okay, I'm feeling stressed and anxious. Let me do cold plunges. Let me do sauna sessions. Let me eat healthier. Let me do some deep breathing techniques. I just basically throw a bunch of random positive activities and it fixes it. But now it's not working and you don't know why. Because you don't understand what the root problem is, and neither did I. I tried all kinds of random positive activities. I literally breathed in and out of a paper bag. I remember putting it like all over my nose and my mouth, and I was like, I tried positive affirmations, positive thinking, positive self-talk, going for walks, hydrating. I literally even hugged a tree because I was like, okay, well, I feel ungrounded. Maybe that'll help. And I literally went in my mom's yard at one point in time and I wrapped my legs and my arms around a tree and I hugged the tree. And believe it or not, it actually made me feel a little bit better. I'm embarrassed to say. Yeah, so I guess I'm a tree hugger. But I was just throwing all these random positive activities because I didn't understand the neuroscience of why the symptoms were there. And so once we understand that the root problem is that your body is going into a threat response when there is no threat, primarily because of sensory triggers that you're experiencing, then the way out becomes apparent. We need to communicate safety to the body and nervous system. We don't just need to do random positive activities. We need to do positive activities that are specifically designed to communicate safety, and studies have shown that the core four that we mentioned are those four primary things. Reassurance, and then I think that's the last one. So here's the thing, okay? Reassurance is powerful, okay? I'm not denying that. And I'm not even saying that I give my clients some reassurance sometimes. But reassurance is more about something external calming you down versus you directly calming yourself down. Like if it's both, if you're self-regulating and you're dealing with the buildup in the body and you're getting some reassurance, that's one thing. But a lot of people are caught in this loop where they're never actually dealing with the buildup in the body and they're just constantly getting reassurance over and over again. And so what I do with people is it's not really reassurance per se, although I do that. It's more co-regulation, which is specific to communicating that there's hope, relating with people through my own story of going through symptoms and overcoming them, other people that I've worked with, things like that. That's really what I focus on, building that secure attachment relationship to where they know that somebody is with them during this recovery process. I think that's way different than just reassurance and just telling them, hey, you're going to be okay. But reassurance alone is not going to fix this because you're not actually dealing with the buildup in the body. So there you have it. Those are 7 things that will not ever permanently get rid of depersonalization realization. We want to focus on those 4 things. If you'd like to apply to work with me and my team to help you with those 4 things, those are literally the main things that we focus on because studies have shown that those 4 things work to rewire the nervous system, as well as there's a lot of individual factors that we have to address with people. I'd love to take a look at your situation. Apply below. Hope this has helped you. Smash the like if it did. Subscribe. Join this family, and I hope you have an awesome day. I'm going to go take a nap and continue to get over this sickness. I think I'm almost over it.